Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and we've been talking a lot about how gravity makes the music on the Cyberpluckers. So I thought that I'd put together a little video and demonstrate what I'm talking about. So the first thing that I teach people, this is really an intro tutorial for autoharp. So if you're a beginning autoharper, you can use this. And if you're an experienced autoharper, you can also use it because you may learn some things about holding the autoharp and about playing rhythm that you didn't know before. So the first thing that I do when I teach somebody to play autoharp is I talk to them about how to hold the thing, right? So the way I was holding it here, that's kind of pretty obvious. You're wrapping your hands around it and so on and so forth. But there's actually some critical things that you can do to make sure that you're in the optimal position to play really great music. So here's the first thing I do. I say take your autoharp, put it in your arms like this, and now put your chin right on the top of the autoharp like this. And I'm looking straight down the way my nose is pointing, right? So I'm looking straight down my nose. And when I do, what I see is this right here. I see what I call the gap, right? So if I look straight past my nose, I'm looking at the gap. That tells me that my autoharp is in the optimal position for playing. Now here's why. Take your thumb, and by the way, you'll notice I don't wear any other picks, and for the purposes of this, you won't need to either because there's not really any finger stuff going on, at least not at the beginning. So I take my thumb and put my chin down on my autoharp, and now I'm going to put my thumb right on my chin like this, right here, so that the pick is perpendicular to the strings, right? So there we go. All right, so here I am, and now if I just allow my hand to drop from my chin right down to the gap, you'll notice that I go right through the gap. I want to position my arm so that when I just drop, and I'm talking about a real drop with no muscle in it, right? So I'm not doing anything. I'm not, kind of manipulating my shoulder. I'm not doing anything. I'm just positioning my shoulder and my arm and my hand so that when I drop that thumb, when I drop that hand, I let all the muscle out of it. It goes straight through the gap. The pick goes straight through the gap. That's where you want to be. Now a couple of things to look at to make sure that you're really there. All right. So the first thing I look at is where's my shoulder, or where's my student's shoulder. So if you look, my shoulder is all the way over here, and it's positioned in such a way that the arm, if I just move it up and down and I don't use really much muscle either in the arm or in the shoulder, I'm just kind of lifting the arm, you'll notice that it kind of subscribes a circle, right? And this is actually the natural motion of the elbow. It goes in a circle, right? So your elbow is kind of the pivot point. And if you think of that, right, if you don't have to do anything except lift and drop, so drop, right? And it comes right back up, and it comes back up the same path that it went down. That's the motion that you want to use to play the autoharp. I see a lot of people doing this kind of thing and this kind of thing and, all kinds of other stuff with their shoulders and their arms. That really gets in the way of rhythm. Gravity is your friend when it comes to rhythm, and rhythm is your friend when it comes to music. So what you really want to do is you want to position yourself in a way that you can take maximum advantage of gravity. That means your thumb is perpendicular to the strings, and it's actually traveling perpendicular to the ground, right? So I go straight across my strings, right? This, right? If I press the chord bell, you'll hear it better, right? So when I drop, you get kind of a really full sound. If I were not positioned properly, let's say I had my autoharp and it was, kind of like this, so that when I put my chin on the autoharp, I see the end of these pegs here. So if I did this and I dropped, I'd get something like this. And it's not nearly as full of sound because my thumb is actually going not perpendicular to the strings, it's kind of going at an angle. So it kind of slides off the strings instead of going straight across them. If I just tilt it that little bit and cause them to drop, then you get a much fuller sound because you're putting all the energy right into the strings. And that's your goal. You want all the energy right into the strings. Okay. So now we've talked about how to position so that your right arm is in the proper position. Now let's talk about the left hand, because the left hand also needs to work with gravity. Gravity really does make the music in both hands. So what you want to do with your left hand is you want to position it in a way that you can actually use gravity to change the position of your fingers, to change which finger you're using, right? So lots of times when people play the auto harp, I see this. They've got their arm kind of wrapped around the bottom of it, and they're doing this with their fingers. And actually, you know what? When I do that, it actually kind of, makes a little tingle in my fingers. It's like the carpal tunnel thing. You don't want to go there if you can possibly avoid it. So what you want to do is, you want to have your arm raised a little bit so that you can get the weight of your arm right down into your fingers. These fingers, when your hand is totally relaxed, as mine is, you'll notice that if I totally relax my hand and then I kind of turn it over, this is kind of the neutral position of the hand. And you'll notice that my fingers very naturally just kind of curl under. That's because I'm not using any muscle. It actually takes muscle to extend your fingers. It takes no muscle at all to relax your fingers. So you want your hand to be as relaxed as possible. Now, we're really fortunate in playing the auto harp in that when you relax your hand and you kind of shake it out like this, you'll notice the fingers kind of form an arch. And in engineering terms, the arch is about the most stable and strong structure that there is. And you can use that to your advantage. If you keep your fingers in that kind of relaxed arch, and you put your middle finger on whatever your one chord is. So here I'm just playing in G, so I'm putting mine on the G. Now you'll notice that my entire arm now forms kind of an arch, and I can actually lift that a little bit. If I lift my arm just a little bit, right, I can actually feel the weight of the entire arm resting on that button. And even more, and I'm not pushing down on it. I'm not doing this. You notice when I use muscle, you'll see these fingers come up. See that? Right? So if I push on the button, you'll see my other fingers come up because I had to contract some muscles to make that happen. If I just use the weight of my hand, I'm still pushing down. So you can hear I'm pushing down, right? But you don't see my other fingers moving at all, right? So I can push down, I can lift up, I can push down. I'm just putting the weight right in there. And I can do the same thing with the other fingers, right? Without doing this, right? So if I do this, you see that one come up? See that right away? So, if I just lean on towards the other finger, you'll notice the arch stays and the finger contacts the button, right? And my other fingers stay calm and relaxed, right? So, and the same thing, of course, is true for the fourth finger, for the ring finger, right? So you just got to kind of shift that weight. I'm actually shifting the entire arm so that it moves to the other button. You'll also notice, when I hold this auto harp, so I don't have a strap on, but I've got it pretty well balanced, and I actually have it balanced a little tiny bit forward. And that also has to do with the way that that I play. So if you want the weight of the buttons, or the weight of your arm to push down the buttons, one thing you can do is you can actually let the auto harp fall forward against the buttons. You see that? So I don't want to do it a lot because obviously I don't want to be holding the auto harp up with the buttons, right? I want it balanced, and it is pretty balanced. But that tiny light touch will actually keep the auto harp in its position.